Hey guys!
Okay, what were you doing?
This week we received a question that we would like to address with you.
Mm,
And that question was around fighting or conflict, rather, between a couple. And the gentleman wrote to us saying he's a little bit worried because the wife, every time they fight, she breaks a fight in front of the kids, and he's really worried of the impact that that will have on the kids.
mm.
And his question was even more around how can he stop these fights, and what impact do they have on their 14-year-old son?
Hmm.
So, to answer that question,
Yeah.
firstly, I would like to start by saying fights are normal. When you fight, or rather, he hates fights. That's what I say, conflict.
Mm.
Conflict is normal between couples because remember, you guys are different. You guys are coming from totally different backgrounds, totally different schools of thought. And chances are when you bring those two people together, there's going to be sort of disagreements, or areas where you don't see eye to eye.
Yeah.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, certainly. I think that there is a healthy way of resolving conflict, and there is an unhealthy way of resolving conflict, whether kids are there or not.
Okay.
And for your own sakes, you need to know the difference. You need to know the difference between the right way or the healthy way of handling conflict and the toxic way of handling conflict.
Yeah.
Because you see, there's nothing wrong with disagreement. It's really how we handle it. Whether the disagreement is in front of kids or is just between the two of you without the kids present. We encourage that you handle conflict or resolve conflict in front of kids so they can learn, how to, resolve conflicts for their own, for their own lives at school, everywhere with their friends and so forth. It's important to do that because you cannot, for every disagreement,
run to the bedroom.
take a time out and then you run to the bedroom or wherever you go.
But at the same time, you are not teaching your kids. I like what you just said because you are not teaching your kids how to handle conflicts because sometimes hiding things from your children may not be the best solution all the time.
It may not be. It may not be because
then you are not equipping them.
Exactly. They grow up ill-equipped around how to handle such issues and differences and so forth. As we said earlier, and emphatically so, it just depends how you handle it.
Okay.
To the question, I'm sure it's around the unhealthy way.
Yes,
the unhealthiness.
Theirs is toxic.
Yes,
so basically, it's people who have not learned how to handle conflict. We are saying if you are at that stage where you still don't know how to fight fairly, to put it politely, rather not have those arguments in front of a child and have them away because what you do will impact the child. I mean, the anonymous even went further to say the wife has a tendency of going back to the child and asking the child, so were you affected by our fight or argument and all of that? And that worries him because then why do you keep on going to the child?
To the child, no, obviously,
it's obviously, I think what even worries more is the child keeps on saying, no, it's fine.
The child, as though the child would say otherwise. You see, when you fight in front of a child, and I use the word fight deliberately, or when you handle conflict in an unhealthy way in front of a child, that means by arguing and raising your voice, name calling and screaming and all of those things. You do a number of things to the psyche of the child.
Yeah.
You basically shake the very ground they stand on. And what that means is that you see, children, they look up to their parents. Their parents are the entire world.
You cannot put you are their definition of
life.
Of itself. Life, basically everything good.
Everything good. And you teach them everything bad, you know, by how you handle yourself. And you see, the first issue is that you when I say you shake the very ground they stand on, I mean you breathe insecurity in their lives. See, when we said again, you become, as parents, you become their entire world. It means that their security, you know, is in you, is in the stability of your relationship, is in the stability of, you know, your marriage and the groundedness of your marriage. So when you lose it, you know, when you name call and all of that, I mean, imagine if I call you names in front of kids, you know, when they look up to you and all of that. So I basically,
what would that do to me?
I undress you, I denigrate you, you know, in front of the children. Now they've got different ways of handling that. Some will handle that by mimicking the way I do things, and then they look down on you, and you know, they know that if I go to mom, you know, this will happen. If I go to dad, this will happen. In other words, you're not united.
Because they obviously, they can't think highly of a parent anymore if the spouse doesn't think highly of them.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
I think there was something, I'm just thinking of something that I read where a child, or rather a father, used to call the mom names, you know, in front of the child. And one day the child repeated exactly what the father said. And the father now was a bit confused in terms of, how do I discipline this child? When he tried, but the child said, but that's what you said.
And you have no right.
I actually learned that from you.
You have no right to discipline a child. When a child acts like you, they learn that from you. You became the teacher. And that's the thing. Whether we know about it or not, we are teachers. We teach every day, you know, our kids, whether we know about it, whether we signed up for it or not, whether we are conscious of it or not. They look at the way we do things rather than the way we say things. How many times do you have to repeat to a child, you know, to pick up their socks, you know, and it's not on you that it takes them 20 years to do it. It's on the fact that they would rather do what you do.
It's easy to do what you do.
It's easy to grow.
You know,
and here's another thing, sweetie. When a child witnesses an abuse between the two of us, and that becomes a norm, not only does that change who that child is, in other words, they don't grow naturally. The growth of that child, you know, it becomes unnatural. You know, it's dictated to by this circumstance. You know, and what happens is that they see then this as the right way of doing things, as the right way of handling conflict, and then what happens is that they go out, you know, and they practice what they have seen at home, you know, happen. And you know what they say about monkey see, monkey do. You know, it's not so much what we say to them and preach to them and all of that, but the teaching, the actual teaching, you know, at
actually
home,
the actual do what you do sticks.
It sticks
even more than what you say.
More than what we say. So growing up, then that child would, you know, even though sometimes this we've seen, and I'm talking about grown kids, I'm talking about us, you know, grown kids who grew up in families where, you know, there has been that abuse in front of us, you know, and all of you do one of two things. You either make up your mind that you will never. So you use that as a motivating factor to motivate you towards the opposite direction, you know?
Or it can pull you towards
that
the same
direction. That's the thing. So there are many grown-ups who were kids who saw this happen, and they know now that it's wrong to do, but in their subconscious mind, you know, this thing is filed there, you know, that when they run out of words to resolve stuff, then they resort to expressing their frustration physically, you know, because to them, that's what it meant, you know, for them, which is that when they're when the parent could not reason with them, then they would need to, get hiding and fight and all of that.
Because it's all they know.
It's all they
But
know.
also, I've seen a lot of research where an abuser, people who are very abusive, or people who are, I don't know, murderers and all of those people who are obviously doing wrong stuff.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I get you fully that others tend to go the opposite. But most of the time, studies show that when someone grew up in an abusive environment, there are greater chances of them mimicking that
same. So the abuser
than the opposite, because
the abused
they learn
it.
They learn it at home.
Absolutely.
So it might not be seen now. A 14-year-old might not see how bad that is affecting them, because one, they're not in a relationship.
Yep.
So they can't really
independent.
They cannot test how that has affected them.
Yeah.
But the minute they get into a relationship, meaning the minute they grow up, those things are going to start showing. So if you're in an abused relationship, yes, a child might look okay now, but it doesn't guarantee that a child will be okay for the rest of their lives.
It doesn't guarantee.
So chances are this will start showing up at a later stage.
Absolutely. And this is, again, the issue that when we fail to manage ourselves, in other words, when we fail to grow up, because that's...
Marriage is for grown-ups.
It's for grown-ups, it's not for kids. When we fail to grow up, one of two things happen. We force our kids to grow up before us. In other words, they come between us and they, play the referee. They like, guys, please don't do it. And we force our kids to grow up
before time.
In other words, they don't have time to be kids, right? And you know how that goes when they grow up, and when they want to be kids when they grow up, because they miss a lot of stages.
You worry why they are reversing.
Yes. So it's playing backward.
Yeah.
But also, secondly, not only do we do that, but also the opposite happens. Where the kid becomes timid, they withdraw. You see, they withdraw because there's too much. There are too many things happening at once in their little minds. Their emotions cannot grasp what is happening. The disappointment, the hurt, it's the whole lot of emotions that they go through as a result, because they don't have it in them as grown up. They cannot, they are kids. They don't have it in them to actually fathom, to actually contain and deal with and process
the way they
what is happening.
They will protect themselves will be to
withdraw,
to get into a
shell. And can I tell you, we've seen that in my classroom. I've seen those kids.
Yeah,
in my classroom,
that's not a good space for a child.
Not only
to
at
be.
Primary, high school, even at university,
and
I've seen those kids.
It affects their confidence.
I've seen those kids at work.
Yes.
Where somebody, they know the timidity that grows up on the inside, that wells up on the inside of them, would make them to
doubt themselves.
To not do stuff that they should be doing because they are in a shell. And there are walls,
lack of confidence,
self-confidence,
self-esteem.
It is so many things. So to fight in front of your kids, to resolve conflict in an unhealthy way or in a toxic manner in front of your children, you should not only look to yourselves in terms of what the disagreement is. Look further down the line, because the person you are doing it in front of is going to grow up and be an adult. And that person's life is totally changed by how you failed to become an adult in front of them. When they trusted you, when their whole security was built around you.
I believe as a parent, you have an opportunity to deposit something great to your child.
Absolutely.
Don't allow your child to become an adult that you will not be proud of later on.
Oh my God.
When you had the opportunity to do the opposite. Make their adulthood be the best. Time of their lives.
By handling conflict properly.
By handling yourself.
And let me tell you very quickly, there are ways of handling conflict. There are ways of managing conflict and resolving conflict, even in front of your kids.
Yeah,
and get in touch with us, and let's sort that out. And I think that the situation is not a hopeless one.
No, certainly
it is salvageable.
It can be resolved.
But
we will probably share at some point. Some tips on conflict resolution, ways of resolving conflict. Thank you so much. We hope that helped. We hope you guys can change the situation for your 14-year-old.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.